L'kras Rosh Hashanah, Tavshin Pei Dalet, I wanted to share some Divrei Torah. I came across the Emre in the year Tav Reish Samach Zayin, brings from his father, the Sfas Emes, B'Shem L'Chadush Yehirim, his great-grandfather, that he says that the Iker on Rosh Hashanah is the Midah of Ayin Tova, that each person should view every other Yid B'Ayin Tova L'Chaveroi. And he brings a remes to this from the Gemara. The Gemara Roshana says, Amalei Rebbe l'Reb Rebbe said to Reb Chia, Zilla Ein Tav, V'Kache Li'archa. Go to Ein Tav, the name of a place. Mekadosh the Chodesh over there. V'Shalach Li Simna, and he sent me a simna, David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. He sent him a simna that David Melech Yisrael is still alive. So we see from here that the Iker of Kiddush HaChodesh, which is the Hischachos Hayareach, is Al Yedei the Midah of Ayin Tova. Meaning the concept of Ayin Tova here is that each person should look at his friend by Ayin Tova, and so that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could be mashgiach on us by Ayin Tova, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu treats us the way we treat others. So if we're going to treat others by Ayin Tova, we're going to look at the milas of everybody. We're going to look and think positively about others without looking at their chesronos. There's always two options. B'chlal, the midah of Ayin Tova is that there's always two options. I could look at a person that he has a lot of miles, or we could look at a person that he has chesronos. What do I choose to focus on when I see this person? Do I choose to focus on his miles? Do I choose to focus on his chesronos? For many people, it's very easy to point at people's chesronos. A guy lanes, right? He made one mistake, or he mispronounced the word, or he missed a trap or something. So instead of telling him, "Oh, you did a beautiful job," you tell him, "Oh, by the way, you pronounced that word wrong." So how do you make the guy feel? You don't make the guy feel good, but what about the whole rest of the parasha that he did such a great job on? That's Ayin Tova. Ayin Tova is being able to overlook the chesronos. So if we want HaKadosh Baruch Hu to overlook our chesronos, it's our job to be able to overlook the chesronos of others as well. So he tells him the siman is to be mekadosh the chodesh in Ein Tav, which is the Ayin Tova. So go be mekadosh the chodesh, meaning that be mekadosh the new year by the hischachos in Ein Tav, and the siman for that is David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. The Gemara says in Tainus that kala she'einaha yafais en kol gufa tzricha b'dika. Says if a kala, her eyes are beautiful, then you don't need to check the rest of her out, because you know that she's going to be good. In the sense of the midas that a person has, if a person has Ayin Tova, that means that he's focusing on the positivity throughout all his avodas Hashem, and he's going to be confident in his avodas Hashem, and he's going to continue and go weiter with more positive traits in avodas Hashem. So that's why we daven in Rosh Hashanah, Al Tova b'mishpat imonu. Don't come and judge us. And this koyach comes from Avram Avinu, Shenata b'Yisrael Ayin Tova. Avram Avinu was the one that created, that he's the father of all of Klal Yisrael, and he's the one that gave us this midah. Because it says, Ki merosh tzurim erenu. From the highest places, he'll show us. Merosh tzurim is from the top of the mountains, erenu. And it says that a chacham is ein of beroshai. What's ein of beroshai? So pshat is that the shpitz chacham, the highest level, the eyes are the highest part of a person's head, that from the five senses that we have. And the Mishnah says in Avos that Talmidav Shel Avram Avinu are Ayin Tova, Ruach Nemucha, and Nefesh Feila. Ayin Tova, looking positively at others, Ruach Nemucha, humble, and Nefesh Feila. V'amidus halalu shel Ruach Nemucha and Nefesh Feila gam ken sheyachim b'Rosh Hashanah. The midas of Ruach Nemucha and Nefesh Feila are also shaykh to Rosh Hashanah. Like the Gemara says, Kol Shana Shirasha B'Tchilasa is going to be rich at the end. That starts off poor, it's going to end off good. It's going to end off well at the end. So, what does it mean? Al Tava b'Mishpat Imanu. Why are we saying that? Because if we're not going to be judging others, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to judge us. In a sense that we're looking to point out and to see the negative things that and the chesronos that another person has. So if we're not going to look at the chesronos that another person has, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to look at our chesronos. And the pasuk says, "Vayashkem Avram b'Bayker v'Chilena Rosh Hashanah v'Yikach Eshnein Arav Itay," and he brings from his father that that over here in this pasuk it's marum is these three midas of Avram Avinu, of Ruach Nemucha, Ayin Tova, and Nefesh Feila, because the word nar is Rosh Tevis Nefesh Ayin Ruach. And in Talmid of Shel Bilam, the other side of the coin from that Mishnah in Avos is Lahebech. Ayin Ra ruach gavoya v'nefesh rechava. And that's what Bilam was about. Bilam was about, how bad the Jews are. How much air are they taking up? How much space are they taking up? Everything that they're doing, he only had negative things to say about anybody. As we spoke in the summer when we were learning Chelek, that the pshat is that we said the Gemara there. The Gemara says that from the klalos that he said, from the brachas that he said, we're able to tell what klalos he really had in mind. So that's why he says, "Anochi yatzasi l'satan." I'm coming out to destroy them. Satan is Resha Tevis, Shvela, Teva, Nemucha, which is hepech of Midas Abila. Because the tkiyas of Rosh Hashanah are to be able to be ma'arif the Satan, to get the Satan confused, to be mevatel the Satan. Vayashkem Avram Ba'boikar, Zok Emri that the pasuk says that Avram woke up in the morning, he woke up early, Hainu shetzarach kol adam lahachnas ba'atzmai elu hamidus ben arusai, Ba'boikar. That a person needs to get accustomed to these midas in his youth, when he's younger, when he has koyach. It's interesting. We say in the slichas, "Al tashlichenu le'ezikna kechleis kechenu al tazvenu." So the pashtus is that we're davening that we should have koyach even when we're old to be able to serve Hashem, to be able to function properly. But I one time heard, I don't remember from who, that al tashlichenu le'ezikna is because when a person's young, he could cover up his midas rais, he could cover up all his bad things. When he gets old, it all comes out. And you can't cover it up anymore. So it's kedai to work on it when you're young. So kedai, when you get older, you should have the midah should already be mesukin. So, and babaikar is when you're young, when it's fresh, when it's new. The same is true. The year is young. The year is fresh. It's a baikar of a new year, right? So let's try to be mechazik in this idea of being mechadish, and these midas of ayin tova. Upasik zed vayashkem Avram ba'boker v'yikach shnina orav ita ksiv koydem ha'akeda. This pasuk of vayashkem Avram ba'boker, that he took his two the ar with him, Eliezer and Yishmael, together when he went with Yitzchak, was said before they went up to the Akeda. This was the preparation that Avram Avinu did to go to the Akeda. This was the most difficult of all the nisyonos that he had, and this was the preparation. This is how he prepared for it. Isur Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara Rosh Hashanah, the Avyudah Mebei says that Yotze Yosef fi Beis HaAsurim. Yosef came out of jail on Rosh Hashanah. Yosef hu ayin tova. Yosef is the mid of ayin tova. She king siv bein peres ale ayin. She Yosef kiddushes einav. Yosef was mekadosh his re'iyah, his eyes, because he didn't want to look at something that wasn't appropriate. Kedi isa ayin shel ratzah. The lazon from this avera is going to be zayachet to be nana from this avashchina. The Yehuda who leiv toiv. There's two functions in the shvatim. There's Yosef and there's Yehuda. So Yosef over here we're saying is the midah of the einayim, that he didn't want to look at something that he shouldn't look at. Mamela he was zayachet to see the shchina, and Yehuda is leiv toiv. She Yehuda hu malchus, va'leiv hu melech ha'evar, and the leiv is the king over the Evarim, and Yehuda is the king over all the Shvatim. It's interesting because the word Melech stands for Mayach, Lev, and Kaved. The Lev is in the middle. It's mashpia to all different directions of the body. The Mayach is on top. It's interesting because what Bilam, so the question is, the Gemara says in Brachas on Dav Zayin, the Bilam knew Oisei Harega to the Rakash Baruch Hu gets angry at the world, we would be able to be Mekal Klal Yisrael. No one was able to be mechav in the Shoah besides for Bilam. So, Frek the Gemara, he had such a short amount of time. What could he have said? Frek Taisis, it was such a short amount of time. What could he have said? So, one answer is he could have said Kalem, which would mean to destroy them. That takes a second to say. So he'd be able to say that. And while he was looking at them, it's interesting because Bilam was Shesum Ha'ayin. He only had one eye, and it's interesting because when it comes to the mitzvah of Alila Regel, which is a mitzvah of Riyah, it says Yira Yeroa, Kederach Shabaluras Kach Balerois, that a person who's a Suma Ba'ayin Achas is Patum in a Riyah because he's only able to see one thing. He's not able to see both. There's a famous words from the Rebbe Ben Reb Shishcha that he says that he would have two pockets. One pocket would say V'anoich Afa Ve'efer, and the other pocket would say B'shvil Nerva Olam. And these are the two kaiches of Riyah that a person has to have. Then on the one hand, the person has to recognize his capability and his yachailis and the opportunity of Torah mitzvahs that he has throughout his life. At the same time, he has to realize that he's up for Ve'efer, and what is he? And Klape what? And what kind of madrega did he get to Avodas Hashem? Right? But a person who's only focusing on one, he's not going to be able to get anywhere, because a person is constantly knocking himself. He's not going to be able to go weiter in Avodas Hashem. A person's only talking about how good he is. He's never going to. He's never going to know. He thinks everything he does is right. He's never going to know when he does anything wrong. Once a person has the mid of ayin tova, then he's able to straighten out the heart, straighten out the leiv, and straighten out the other midas. Because the Isa, like the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, that the nerves of the eyes are totally in the leiv, that this is the cheshbon over here, that the eyes are Rosh Hashanah, and the heart is Yom Kippur, and the Tliyim Zebazeh, you can't have one without the other. Rosh Hashanah hu ayin tov, like we started off saying from the Sasemis B'Shem L'Chiddushei Harim, that Rosh Hashanah is a mid of ayin tov. And it's interesting, because even about Goyim, because Milay Nifkat Kayim Hazeh, the entire world is being nichlal in the din of Rosh Hashanah, every single part of the world. So we have to look at everything with the ayin tova, even the Goyim, as Sasemis says this. Rosh Hashanah hu ayin tov, v'em Kippurim hu leiv tov, v'em tluyim echad b'sheni. V'zeh ha-remez b'zil le'ein tava kache li'archa, v'shalach li simna David melech Yisrael chai v'kayel. The fact that Rosh Hashanah is the mid of ayin tov and Yom Kippur is the mid of leiv tov, they're tluyim zebazeh. And this is the remez that he mentioned earlier, that the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, go to Ein Tav and be mekadosh the Yarcha there, and the simon that he sent him was, v'shalach li, he sent me, David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. Because David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim is Leiv. Liban Shel Yisrael. The Melech is Liban Shel Yisrael. And David HaMelech was Liban Shel Yisrael. It's interesting, I think the Gemara says that David HaMelech took his Leiv and made it only good. It was the Gemara Bava Basra. The Gemara says, Daf Yud Zayin, the Gemara Bava Basra says that there were three people. Shelo shalat behenrima v'teileya. Shiva lo shalat behenrima v'teileya. Eluhen Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, Moshe Aaron and Miriam, Binyamin ben Yaakov. So the Gemara brings psukim. V'yesh Amram af David. The chsiv af besar yishkan levetach. The af besar yishkan levetach means that he was able to take his basar and make that helig, like the Gemara says in Yerushalmi at the end of Brachas, that he was able to turn his lave, to take his Yitzhahara, and to force his Yitzhahara to, his kaif his Yitzhahara to listen to him. To kaif his Yitzhahara to listen to his Yitzhahara. Similar to what it says by Avraham Avinu, that he took his, what's levavai? Mitzvah says libay namel lefanecha, but the pshat is that he was able to take one leiv and he was able to take both libay, so to speak, and turn them into one leiv. But that it says was Eikar Yitzhahara. So Rosh Hashanah is Tali b'Yom Kippurim Tali b'Rosh Hashanah, v'Ikar HaShayfer b'Rosh Hashanah lamdim b'Yom Kippur, shekem b'Rosh Hashanah le'namar Shayfer. Rosh Hashanah doesn't say anything about Shayfer, the pasuk is learned out from Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are two sides to the same coin. Yosef shekidush shem shemayim b'seiser zachav ha'hisifu loy ois achas mishmay shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu d'chsiv edus b'Yosef samay. The pasuk says that the pasuk calls him Yehosef. Where did that hay come in? Because he was mekadosh shem shemayim b'seiser. He was zeicha that a letter from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name should be added to his name. So instead of Yud Vav Samach end of Hey, it became Yud Hey Vav Samach end of Hey. That's Yehosef. Edus b'Yehosef Samay. And you need Edus because it was something that was B'tzera, wasn't something that everybody knew about. And ultimately it says, some people heard about it, so that's how they found out about it. But the Ikar Kiddush Hashem Shemayim was before that. That wasn't the Kiddush Hashem. The Kiddush Hashem was the day in and the day out of the Eishus Beit Tiferet that he wasn't Nichnat to her, and it wasn't Nichshel Ba'avera at all. So Hosifu Le'os Achas Mishmai Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu D'chsiv Edus b'Yehosef Samay. Yehuda was Kiddush Shem Shemayim b'Farhetzia Zachav V'Nikra Kula Al Shmai Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is also Merumas on Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is a day of Seiser, because it says Bakesel Yom Chagenu, it's hidden. V'Yom Kippurim hu be'izgalia. Yom Kippurim is out in the open. It's b'fahesya shemaskirim shem hamafarish. We say the shem hamafarish, but Derech Klal is something that has to be bitzina. You could only give it over to somebody who's going to keep it bitzina, and you can't give it out to people. But on Yom Kippur, we're allowed to use it. Why? Because there's something, there's a great gilui of the hatavas hayoim of the kapar of Yom Kippur that that allows us to say that allowed them in the Beis Hamikdash to say the Shem HaMefarish the same way we say Baruch Shem Kol Malchus Elel Vod B'Kol Ram, right? Because it was the issue with the Malachim, like the Gemara Pesachim says. But in Kippur, if we are like Malachim, so we could say what the Malachim say. And here's where he brings something very fascinating. Yisa b'Mishnah, the Mishnah says in Avos to U'uru'u Ezi Derech Yishara Sheyav Adam. He says, go out and see what's a Derech Yishara that a person should choose. Rabbi Lezer Omer Ayin Tova. Rabbi Lezer, who's Rabbi Lezer ben Harkinis, says Ayin Tova. Rabbi Lezer Omar, Rabbi Lezer ben Aroch, he says Leiv Tov. Visa Sham, the Mishnah says there, Im Yiyu Kol Chachmei Yisrael B'Kaf Mazayim. If all the Chachmei Yisrael were on a scale, Rabbi Lezer ben Harkinis B'Kaf Shniyah, Machriyas Kulam. Rabbi Lezer ben Harkinis would weigh down all the other ones. Meaning Rabbi Lezer ben Harkinis, who said Ayin Tova, the midah of Ayin Tova, together with Rabbi Lezer ben Harkinis, that would outweigh all the Chachmei Yisrael. Abashol says, Mishmai imyu kulam, even with Rabbi Lezer ben Harkinis al kafachas, and you put Rabbi Lezer ben Arach bekaf shniya machriyas kulam. Rabbi Lezer ben Arach and the midah of Leiv Tov would be able to be machriya everything else. There's like the Re'emes, confuse what we're saying over here, that Rosh Hashanah is the midah of Ayin Tova, and Yom Kippur is the midah of Leiv Tov. So then the midah of Rabbi Lezer ben Harkinis, who is it's interesting that Rosh Hashanah is the midah of Rabbi Lezer ben Harkinis, because he's the one that says in Rosh Hashanah the B'Tishrei Nivra Olam, and he's the first time to mention the Mishnayos, right? Right? There's a reason for that, and we'll talk about it a lot. But the pshat is that it's because of the Ayin Tova. That's why he was zeicha to be the first one. Really, it was from his midah of Avas HaTorah, as we speak all the time. But that Avas HaTorah comes from the Ayin Tova. Avas HaTorah comes from the midah of Ayin Tova altogether, because Moshe Rabbeinu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu, the Gemara Darm says, and he b'Tovas Einoi gave it over to Klal Yisrael. So the whole Metzias that Klal Yisrael has a Torah today was put forth by the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu gave the Torah b'Tovas Einoi to Klal Yisrael. So any Torah that exists today is because of the midah of Ayin Tova. So a Torah is be'etzem a Torah of Ayin Tova. Mela Rebbe Lezer, who's the first one in the Mishnayos, right? When Moshe Rabbeinu, the Medrash says in Chukas that when Moshe Rabbeinu came up to Shemayim, he heard HaKadosh Baruch Hu learning the Mishnayos of Para, and he says Eliezer B'ni says that a Para bas Shnayim could be used for the Para Aduma. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, Halavai she'etis ha'machalotza, Halavai, this should be from my descendants. What was the pshat in this? Because what does it mean from his descendants? It means from his descendants that he has this midah within him of Ayin Tova. That's this midah of Ayin Tova that Rabbi Lezer ben Harkinis has. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu saw when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was learning the Mishnayos. Now, min hastam, it comes from the fact that the Paraduma is coming to be mechaper on the Egel. And the Egel also has to do a lot with the midah of Ayin. With midah of Ayin, because Egel is Oisiyos Ayin Gimel Lamed, which is really Gal Ayin, like some Sefer in Drashas and Chanukah talks about this. But the Nekuda is that the Midas Hariyah, the Midah of Ayin Tova, that the Torah Shabbat Peh starts off with the Midah of Rebbe Lezer, which is the Midah of Ayin Tova. That's the Metzias of the Torah that we have. The whole Metzias of the Torah that we have exists because of Ayin Tova. So the Torah mitzad itself is something that's Ayin Tova. The Torah is Derech Darchei Noyam, but it's more than that. It's the whole Metzias of Torah should create within a person Ayin Tova. So what he's saying is, what happened by the Egel? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, let me destroy Klal Yisrael, and I'll start again with you. Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, Im Ayin Mechenin HaMisifrecha. Ayin is Aleph Yodon, not Ayin Yodon. Not to be confused. Right? Im Ayin Mechenin HaMisifrecha, you can take my name out of Sefer Torah, right? And we know that the Gemara says in Bava Kama, Daf Samach Aleph, that it's a Mesorah in Beis Din Shel Shmuel Haramotzi Shekol HaMeiser Atzma Al Divrei Torah Ein Omer Dvar Torah Mishmai. And the Chidush Harim explains that the pshat is because somebody is Meiser Atzma Al Divrei Torah. Pshat is that it's not Mishmai. He doesn't have a name that comes in front of the Torah. Pshat is he is the Torah. Person has a Zamin Mesiras Nefesh like Moshe Rabbeinu had for Klal Yisrael. So that's a pshat Mechenin HaMisifrecha. It's not a punishment, but he became one with the Torah, right? Why would Moshe Rabbeinu do that? Why wouldn't HaKadosh Baruch Hu see eye to eye with what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to destroy Klal Yisrael? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu, let's look at the milas of the Yidden. Let's look at the Yidden that didn't do the Egel. Let's look away a little bit from the Egel, so to speak, which is a fascinating thing. But that's what it would sound like. So that's why Rebbe Lezer ben Hurkenes is the first Tana in the Mishnah. So Ushneim Emes, the Kaf Maznayim Hu Tishrei. The Kaf Maznayim is Tishrei, as we know from the Mazalos. The Mazel, the picture of the Mazel, so to speak, is a scale, is a Kaf Maznayim. Rosh Hashanah Ayin Toivahi HaMachras Yom Kippurim Leiv Tov Machrir. Depends on the day. Rosh Hashanah, the main midah is Ayin Tova, and Yom Kippurim, the main midah is Leiv Tov. Rebbe Lezer ben Hurkenes who bore such enim abetipa. Rebbe Lezer ben Hurkenes is a bore such enim abetipa kedisa sham. It's a midas Yosef. That he's Shremer Habris. He's enim abetipa. Doesn't lose anything. He's in full control of himself. Doesn't lose anything. Vayidei ayin tavi yecholim lekarves kol ha'olam. V'hainu enim abetipa. That al yedei that he's being mekarv the whole world through the ayin tova, he doesn't lose anything. L'kach b'Rosh Hashanah mispalim al kulam. And we're davening about everyone. We're davening about the whole world. We're davening on everybody. The Iker Nishal Eitel Yisrael Shem Kippur Humiyuchid Rakal Yisrael. The Iker Tshuva. It's interesting because Tshuva is only by Yidden. Goyim don't have Tshuva. What about Ninveh, right? So really, it's a kasha because if you hold that Tshuva is only by Yidden and not by Goyim, so what's pshat? Because Baruch Hu said Yoinit to Ninveh, the Ninveh had to do Tshuva. What do you mean they have to do tshuva? They don't have a concept of tshuva. They definitely don't have a mitzvah of tshuva, right? But if they do tshuva, then is it counted? But that's not the pshat. Pshat is like this. Pshat is, if there's going to be his errors by goyim to do tshuva, that could be error a yid to do tshuva. So that's the only way that a goy would have the ability to do tshuva. It's not in the sense that the goy would get a kapara for his averos, but it's a sense that through the goyim will give a hisayrus to the yid to do tshuva, so then that's when a guy would have a chance to do tshuva. But on Yom Kippur, it's a day for only of Klal Yisrael. We're like Malachim; it's only for us. Ve'ikr nishal etel Yisrael Yom Kippur miyuchad rak Yisrael sheken ikr hamazon hoylech lalev. The ikr mazon goes to the heart. Mayin hamizgaber. The avodah of Yom Kippur is creating a mayin hamizgaber, not like a borsut she'enim abetipa. It is very interesting because the pashtus is Rosh Hashanah is called Yom HaZikaron. The pashtus is that the reason why Rabbi Lezer ben Hurkenes never forgot anything that he learned is pshat because he had a gevaldig zikaron, right? Which would also be shaykh to the concept of Yom HaZikaron. But they say b'shem the Chafetz Chaim that the pshat is very different because if you look at the beginning of Pirkei Rabbi Lezer, the first two prakim over there go through how Rabbi Lezer ben Hurkenes wanted to learn. And he didn't know anything. And he was crying, and his father asked him, and then he went to yeshiva, and then he didn't eat, and it was a terrible situation, until he learned new halachas every day, until his face was meir, kachama, kagalgal chama, and he was giving a big shir klali, and everybody came, and even his father came. His father didn't recognize him because his face was shining so much. That's the ma'or panim, that's through the ayin tova that he had. And it's interesting, because it's mashma over there. Why would these rebbeim, these tanoim hakdashim, take on such a case, right? And he's such a nebuch, he's 28 years old. It says over there, and he didn't smell nice. So why should they take him on? Because they believed, his rebbeim believed that they saw somebody. Obviously, he's serious about learning, because he was crying. He wanted to learn. He had tremendous mesiras nefesh. So when a person has a zaman mesiras nefesh with Torah, he's not going to forget it. But the pshat is that's taking all his kaiches. And he's not going to be ma'abed even a little bit of his kaiches to put into learning. It's not necessarily that he won't forget. So he's not forgetting because he has a good memory. He's not forgetting because he loves it too much to be able to let go of it. So it's also a borsut she'enim abed tipa. But his rebbeim showed him the midah of ayin tova, as Rebbe Eliezer himself was personified this midah. There's nothing in the world that goes to waste. Meaning, when we're davening on Rosh Hashanah, what do we mean we're davening? We're not just davening that Klal Yisrael should bring a Kveit Shemayim. We're davening that the entire Metzias of the world should bring a Kveit Shemayim. So if every little bit of everything, if every tree, if every blade of grass, every animal in the jungles in Africa are able to bring a Kveit Shemayim, that shows that there's nothing in this world that was created levatala. And that's the point of, that's this Nakuda Kveit Shemayim. That's the Enam Abatipa. That means that every single thing has a purpose and is is going, and it has a direction and it's going somewhere. Masha Enken by Yom Kippur, it's a day that's miyuchid for Klal Yisrael. Shekein Ikar Hamazon Holich Lalev, and we don't eat on Yom Kippur. The Sudas Yantif of Yom Kippur is Erev Yantif, as Rabbeinu Yonis says. V'zeu Mayin Hamizgaber Shumidus Rebbe Eliezer ben Arach. Machlekes Yosef Hashvatim Haysagam Ken Kamay Machlekes Rebbe Eliezer ben Hurkin and Rebbe Eliezer ben Arach. So what does this mean? That the Ikar Mazon, the Ikar Shefa of the world, is through the avoid of Klal Yisrael, and through the avoid of Klal Yisrael, that's going to be Holich Lalev, and that's a Mayin Hamizgaber, and that will bring a Shefa that will never stop. And that's the Mayin HaMizgaber of the Midah of Leiv Tov. The Leiv is just pumping more Tov. And the Machlekes of Yosef and the Shvatim, I said, Gamken, Kamay Machlekes, Rebbe Eliezer ben Hurkin, Rebbe Eliezer ben Arach. The Machlekes Yosef and the Shvatim was also very much what the Machlekes, Rebbe Eliezer ben Hurkin, Rebbe Eliezer ben Arach was about. That the Shvatim weren't seeing things with the same vision, so to speak, that Yosef was seeing. I mean, it's more of arichas when we'll discuss Mitzvah and Parashat Vayeshev what it's about. But Yosef was different. He stood out. Yaakov chose to learn with him over the other brothers, and they were Mekana boy. He was the Balach Aloimus. They didn't like him. They're Mazalz on him. And what does that mean? Right? But he had a certain ayin tova that they didn't have. So he saw things differently than them, and it bothered them, because a person who is extreme ayin tova, he's gonna be makarvel kinds of funny people. Why be makarvel these funny people when you sit and learn or something like that? But the point is that a person who has this great ayin tova, he sees the milas in everyone, as deep and as far down and as lost as you think that they could be. They'll still be able to. He'll still be able to see the miles over there, and it's fascinating, because if you look at what happened to Yosef as a 17-year-old boy, gets thrown into the bar, and then ends up having the Nisayon with Eishes Beitifar, and he was a Nichshel. But what's interesting is the Gemara Saita says that he saw the Musti Yuknashal Ava Bachaloin. Where did that come from? Why should he be zeichet to have this Mara that's going to be matzal him from the Chet? But the pshat is that he saw. It was a riyah, because he protected his eyes, like the Gemara says, that it was ayin shalerotza lozun min avera, so it was able to be mezum mizav. It will be able to be mezum mizav ashchina. So that was. It does take a certain kind of malchus, Yosef. There is such a thing as malchus of Shevet Yosef as well as from malchus Yehuda. And the ikar is that the malchus Yosef is a preparation for the Malchus based David. So that's what he says, Ein Tav to go be Mekadosh for David Malchus Yisrael Chavikayim. Eber says Al Halfen, we should have a Ksiva Chasim and Teva, and we should Shenira Kol Echad, Malas Chavirenu, V'loich Esreinom, a good Gebench Dior.